Mother Nature might obscure the overshadow. Best meteorologists told USA Nowadays Thursday when inquired approximately the climate figure for the April 8 display, presently fair 10 days absent. The entire eclipse will cross over a dozen states because it navigates from Texas to Maine on the evening of April 8. Millions of individuals are anticipated to travel to see it, which can moreover pull in researchers from over the country to ponder its one-of-a-kind effects on the Earth and its air. The full add-up to sun-oriented overshadow experience will dive individuals along the contract way into haziness midday, but people outside the way of totality can still utilize overshadow glasses to see the moon pass before the sun. The estimate from the government's Climate Expectation Center for April 8 calls for broad cloudiness and precipitation for much of the eastern half of the country, said meteorologist Anthony Artusa. This, of course, isn't favorable for great seeing conditions close the way of totality on April 8. AccuWeather meteorologist John Feerick was too on the cynical side, foreseeing parts of clouds from eastern Texas up through the Ohio Valley on April 8. Both forecasters met concede it's troublesome to say for certain approximately the climate this distant ahead. Artusa said that attempting to figure day-by-day climate conditions this distant out is exceptionally challenging, and this fact cannot be exaggerated. And a few overshadow chasers say clouds aren't a deal-breaker. The shadow of the moon will dive everything in its narrow path of totality into obscurity, notwithstanding of whether there's clouds in the sky, and essayist and overshadow chaser Jamie Carter on whenisthenexteclipse.com advises anybody who has never seen an overshadow to not be threatened by clouds. In the meantime, the early figures too have a surprise for individuals living within the Northeast. They appear that the farther northeast you go, the way better the chances of clear skies can be. That's the inverse of historical patterns for cloud cover. Shocking early cloud estimate for obscure. At this earlier range, computer demonstrate runs delineate a creating storm over the southeast around the time of the overshadow, with broad cloudiness and precipitation overspreading much of the eastern half of the country, Artusa said. Shockingly, these early forecasts appear that the more distant northeast you go, the superior the chances of clear skies may be. Northern unused York State through insides unused Britain appears to be the most excellent choice, Artusa added. Weather.com's Jonathan Erdman, in a web figure discharged Thursday evening, said parts of the Northeast may see less cloud cover and precipitation when compared to the socked-in central U.S. How do I watch the 2024 solar overshadow? On the off chance that clouds do not square it. There are many ways of observing the obscure. Get the total encounter in individual. In the event that you're in a limit band of U.S. land that ranges from Texas to Maine, you see the moon piece the sun and its shadow cast a night-like haziness over soil for a few minutes. You briefly be able to see up without eye protection and see the moon piece the sun. Observe from exterior the path of totality. Much of the U.S. will get a fractional see of the obscure that isn't about as amazing as being within the way of totality. Soil won't be dove into total obscurity, and you'll ought to wear defensive eyewear to see the moon mostly square the sun. Observe a live stream. Check back on April 8 for a video feed from the path of totality. It's not the same as being there in individual, but hey, at slightest you won't have to sit in activity. What time is the sun-powered obscure on April 8? The obscure will start in Texas at 1:27 p.m. Central Daylight Time and end in Maine at 3:35 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time, but the precise time of the eclipse varies by where you're in its way. You'll look by zip code to discover the correct time for your location. Where will the April overshadow be obvious? All of the lower 48 U.S. states could see the moon at slightest clip the sun, but that locate could be a play compared to being within the path of totality. Since the contractway incorporates or is close some of the nation's biggest cities, anticipate millions of individuals to swarm into a band of arrive a small over 100 miles wide that ranges from the Texas/Mexico border to the Maine/Canada border. Here are the major cities in each state where you'll expect to experience totality. Note that the included times don't account for when the fractional eclipse begins and closes. Dallas, Texas, 1:40 to 1:44 p.m. Central Daylight Time. Idaho, Oklahoma, 1:45 to 1:49 p.m. Central Daylight Time. Little Rock, Arkansas, 1:51 to 1:54 p.m. Central Daylight Time. Poplar Feed, Missouri, 1:56 to 2:0 p.m. Central Daylight Time. Paducah, Kentucky, 2 to 2 p.m. Central Daylight Time. Carbondale, Illinois, 1:59 to 2:03 p.m. Central Daylight Time. Evansville, Indiana, 2:02 to 2:05 p.m. Central Daylight Time. Cleveland, Ohio, 3:13 to 3:17 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time. Erie, Pennsylvania, 3:16 to 3:20 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time. Buffalo, Modern York, 3:18 to 3:22 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time. Burlington, Vermont, 3:26 to 3:29 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time. Lancaster, Modern Hampshire, 3:27 to 3:30 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time. Caribou, Maine, 3:32 to 3:34 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time. NASA doesn't certify solar overshadow glasses. In the lead-up to the highly expected add-up to sun-based overshadow, the online marketplace had been overwhelmed with producers claiming to be offering protective eyewear endorsed by NASA. The seal of endorsement from one of the world's driving space organizations sounds prestigious, doesn't it? It ought to be a surefire sign for you to avoid that specific item in case conceivable. Not since the U.S. Space Agency isn't legitimate or learned when it comes to all things infinite, but or maybe since NASA is fair not within the business of endorsing any sort of stock. Online marketplaces are overwhelmed with retailers selling sun-powered obscure glasses they claim have the NASA seal of endorsement. Consider that a ruddy hail to see somewhere else.